What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another installment into the extraordinary life of Emon. I am your host, and today we're gonna talk about Robert Sylvester Kelly, aka RKelly. You know, specifically I wanted to get on here and I wanted to deep dive into what exactly happened with this man and how his story comes to an end. But before we jump into any of that, I do just want to ask you guys out there, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave me a wonderful comment down below. I appreciate you guys. We're in early days of the channel, but we're making moves and we're making it happen. So we're gonna go ahead and transition and jump right into it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Robert, you've been a bad man. Yes, you have. And we finally caught up to you. We finally caught you. Law enforcement finally put the nail in the coffin. The only Pied Piping that man gonna be doing is from Club Fed. Was that too soon? It might have been too soon. Well, I'm not reshooting it, so it's in the video. It's gonna go down. Just in case you all don't know what exactly happened, RKelly got sentenced to 30 years and he still has 2 trials to go, so it's potentially he's actually going to get more time. So at this point we can basically put the nail in the coffin and say RKelly's done. He's going to go to prison and he's not going to be heard from again. They're going to put him under the jail, lock away the key, and forget he ever existed. Moving on, the RKelly situation was obviously one that was clearly enabled because of his wealth, his social status, and his celebrity status, and those around him, his entourage, willing to continue to uplift and encourage these behaviors. I honestly think that they should be charged as well, but if we can get the main ringleader, RKelly, all right, I'll take that. There was some crazy stuff going on associated with this, and it honestly should not have gone on as long as it has, because even though he has financial means and he's a celebrity, nah, the law is the law, and it should definitely have caught up with him a lot earlier than it has at this point. But that's okay, because it finally did catch up to him. I mean, if you really think about it, this whole thing started with the Aaliyah thing back in the 90s. I'm a little old, but I remember this. You know, everybody knew he had a thing for young girls. Like, he had a thing for underage young girls. Let's just be real. That's what I mean by that. And it actually occurred where he actually married Aaliyah, who was underage during that time. Obviously, it was eventually annulled because she was underage and she couldn't give consent. There was a whole thing about that as well. Already, right then and there, he already showed you his cards. But nevertheless, we went on and a series of additional incidents occurred. So after the Aaliyah situation, I believe he was like sued by an intern, you know, who he had started an intimate relationship with, and I believe she actually ended up suing him from like emotional distress over what he had done to her or what he wanted to do to her. I don't know the whole story about that because that one was sealed, but I believe she was underage as well. Moreover, I remember there was the woman who sued him for forcing her to give up a baby. Then there was another woman who sued him for videotaping intimate act. There was all sorts of stuff associated with this man. A lot of this stuff is vague because a lot of it was actually settled out of court because of his celebrity status. He basically has been paying people off this entire time. Like, when is somebody gonna step in and say, no, there's no more paying out of court or settling this out of court? This man needs to be put in jail. Unfortunately, but that's where we're at. There was even an incident where I believe police or his lawyer or something came into contact with a camera with him performing acts on a young lady younger than she should have been. That suddenly disappeared. Financial resources, lack of evidence, the case was dropped, nothing happened. Like, this is crazy. I will say, you know, for a little while towards the end of the 90s and early 2000s, I believe he did slow down because things got quiet for RKelly. He did go into the background for a little while until, you know, the situation started with the cult and how his entourage started to leak out information associated with how he did things and how, you know, he was basically a predator and basically a dictator in his own right. Based off what I've been reading on the internet, it's more like an organization. It seems like he put certain players into positions, or certain people, his friends, his entourage, into positions where they were going to gain based off of him gaining. But they would also maintain what's called plausible deniability because they never actually see him doing these things to young ladies or young women or anything like that. They just supply and support. They don't actually directly get involved so that they can say, oh, well, we didn't actually know, and try to evade, you know, the legal system in reference to that. Honestly, they should go down too. Back to those leaks that came out, a lot of the people in the entourage started started slowly trickling information to the media stating that there were plenty of women involved, some underage and some of age, that were both mentally and physically being abused. They were treated poorly. They were influenced and treated like slaves. All kinds of stuff. It was wild. Unfortunately for Robert, though, this was a time when a lot of the Me Too stuff started. So guess what started happening? A lot of these women started coming out of the woodwork. They literally started going up to the media, started selling their stories, and a lot of spotlight started to turn onto this organization, called whatever you want to call it. Robert actually started to get into hot water over the behavior associated with his little empire that he had his people in. It got out, and this was the beginning of the demise right here. A direct result of this was the Mute RKelly campaign that was going on the internet, where a lot of the radio stations, Spotify, all of that stuff wasn't playing his music no more. He was still trying to go on campaigns and stuff, but nobody was going for that. I would say things really took a turn for the worse when the lady actually sued him for giving her an STI. I think at that point people really started to wake up to say, hold on a second, something clearly happened, because she had evidence and she did come forward and she was serious. You know what happened, and then she got paid. After that, things really started to trickle up. So once everything really got to the point where everybody was like, okay, clearly something happened, people started pushing for an investigation. So in response, RKelly actually went on there and did the documentary in 2019 or so. I believe it was called like Surviving RKelly or something like that, where all the women and stuff came out and they was talking about it, and then they switched off, and then they did his interview on there, and he was basically defending his position, but he didn't really have a lot of good things to say. I remember hearing a lot about this interview. Personally, I didn't watch it because I don't want to support anything associated with that man, but a lot of people did not think that this was the greatest idea, because during this time also his lawyer supplied law enforcement with video evidence of him committing a crime. As a result of the camera and the footage and stuff being found, new charges were filed against him, and from there the whole thing just began to crumble. His whole empire was done after that, because everybody was coming out of the wazoo, everybody was suing, criminal charges were being filed, all the spotlight was on RKelly. In court, actually, I was reading some of the transcripts, they even did actually put on record and confirm that he did marry the star Aaliyah when she was underage. The lawyers were able to confirm that and put it in writing. So at that point, his case is moot, because now you have proof that this man has a problem. So the initial charges that were filed against him, he actually were found guilty on. He was found guilty on 9 counts. I'm not gonna say what. It was child related, it was sex trafficking, etc. You can Google that and figure it out. But he was actually, sent to prison. He did get convicted associated with that, and he was put in prison. While he was in prison, he was attacked, I think while he was in his sleep or something, by another inmate. You should have seen this man crying and carrying on, and the judge wasn't trying to hear. His lawyer was trying to get him out of jail. He's not safe, etc., etc. He was exactly where he needed to be. The point of this is Robert had a very long campaign. This was a situation that should not have gone on as long as it has. He should have been put away a long time ago. The man is a predator and has a thing for underage girls. A lot of people out there argue that some of these women out there, those that are of age, did it to themselves, that they could have just left. However, Stockholm Syndrome is a thing, so you really can't say that. Although we want to say that, it's unfair to say that. Additionally, no matter what the situation, no woman, no girl deserves to be abused. No one deserves to be in a situation where their mental health is in fact being damaged, they're physically being damaged and or manipulated, or placed in situations to where they're not actually able to give consent. Robert caused a lot of trauma, and we have no idea how much treatment is going to be required to fix this, how much trauma, how much life-changing influence that this man has had on those victims. So we really can never actually speak to the victims. Whether or not we get the people in his entourage, they will be judged one day, as we all will, and they're gonna have to live with that, live with what they did, live what they encouraged through their acts or lack of action. They're gonna have to live with that, and they're gonna have to move through life with that. But just in case, again, you didn't hear me celebrating, in the end, at least we have some sort of rejoice for the victims out there. He did get convicted. He has been sentenced to 30 years, and he still has 2 other trials that he needs to attend. So at least, if nothing else, they put this man away. He's in the clink, and that's really all I have to say on the matter. What do you guys think? Let me hear it down below in the comment section. I really do appreciate you guys taking the time to watch my video. If you haven't already, do me that favor. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave me a wonderful comment down below. This has been another installment into the extraordinary life of Emon. I have been your host, and I'll see you on the next one.
3, 2,